Welcome to my channel, friends. Today I am going to explain a comedy romance movie named The Little Hours, which was released in the year 2017. So without wasting the time, let's the explanation begin. In the beginning of the movie, we see a Sister Fernanda, who is leading a donkey to the church. Upon reaching there, she meets Sister Ginevra, who asks her where she disappeared last night. Fernanda explains that she went looking for the donkey. Ginevra inquires about how the donkey keeps escaping, and they discuss this when the church's caretaker, Lurko, interrupts them and scolds them. In response, the sisters start arguing with him. Afterward, Ginevra complains to head Sister Maria about the donkey constantly running away, suggesting that she should be responsible for taking care of it. Sister Alessandra, who is sitting on her bed, is troubled with her life in the church and expresses her desire to leave. The next morning, her father, Ilario, visits and informs her that they couldn't find a groom for her because the prospective groom's families are demanding hefty dowries. Alessandra proposes that Ilario should work for the church and donate money instead to gather the dowry, but Ilario vehemently refuses. The three sisters then set out with hand-woven clothes, and they encounter Lurko on the way, who eyes them with ill intentions. They confront him, exchange harsh words, and even get into a physical altercation. Meanwhile, Father Tommaso goes to the market to sell the sisters' handmade clothes, but he unexpectedly meets Lurko. Lurko informs Father Tommaso that he can no longer work at the church because the sisters assaulted him and used foul language. Father Tommaso tries to convince him that things will change, but Lurko doesn't listen and leaves. In the next scene, we see Bruno, who is having a meal with his wife Francesca. Bruno is discussing his financial backer, but Francesca is more interested in their servant, Macedo. The two of them gaze at each other with love in their eyes. That very night, they share a sweet moment together and engage in a heartfelt conversation. Francesca confides in Macedo, revealing that her husband Bruno is utterly useless and clueless. Upon hearing this, Macedo suggests they do something to make her happy again. Just before Bruno enters the room and discovers Francesca with Macedo, he escapes through a window. Bruno pursues him, and Macedo puts on an act, pretending to be asleep. Bruno checks the pulse of every servant to find out whose heart is racing and who has fled. Macedo's heart is pounding, but due to the darkness, Bruno cannot identify him. He cuts Macedo's ponytail and declares that in the morning, he will figure out the intruder's identity. As soon as Bruno departs, Macedo cuts off all the servants' ponytails. The next morning, when Bruno arrives to punish the intruder, he is astonished to find that everyone's ponytails are gone. The servant has outsmarted him. Francesca later approaches Macedo again while he is working outdoors, kisses him, and expresses her love, all of which Bruno witnesses. He orders his soldiers to capture Macedo, who narrowly escapes into the jungle. While fleeing, Macedo encounters Father Tommaso, who is intoxicated and has crashed his cart into a river, desperately trying to save his clothes from getting wet. Macedo helps him, and Father Tommaso is impressed, taking Macedo to the church with him. On the way, he advises Macedo to pretend to be mute and deaf in the church, or else the nuns there will trouble him incessantly. The next morning, they both arrive at the church, where Father Macedo meets Sister Maria. Initially, Sister Maria hesitates to let him stay in the church, but after Tommaso's persuasion, she agrees and offers him a job as a gardener. The following day, Macedo starts working. At that moment, Sister Fernanda approaches him with a stern demeanor, demanding to know who he is. Fernanda was unaware of his identity. Just then, Sister Maria arrives and informs Fernanda that he is Macedo, here to work as a gardener, and he is mute and deaf. That same night, Fernanda's friend Marta visits, and they all head to Alessandra's room to indulge in some drinks. After a while, Ginevra joins them. Under the influence of alcohol, they engage in conversations about the pleasures of love. Marta shares the joys of love with them, and the four of them thoroughly enjoy these discussions. In their intoxicated state, Fernanda and Ginevra begin kissing each other, sharing a sweet moment. The next morning, Macedo is busy digging in the garden. At that moment, Sister Alessandra approaches him and engages in a conversation. Before long, Alessandra attempts to make love to him and they share a kiss. Macedo also responds to her advances, taking full advantage of the situation. However, their encounter is interrupted by the ringing of the church bells and Alessandra departs. On the other hand, Fernanda and Ginevra are washing clothes, and Alessandra unexpectedly arrives. She discusses the events of the previous night and reveals that she had a great time. Fernanda questions why her clothes are soiled, and Alessandra explains that she was assisting Macedo in digging a hole. This revelation surprises both of them since they had never seen Alessandra working before. One day, Ginevra observes Fernanda and her friend Marta heading into the jungle. She follows them and discovers that they are preparing a potion called belladonna, believed to attract men after consumption. Marta uses belladonna to her eyes and cut Fernanda's finger and makes her taste her own blood. They then head to Macedo's room, where they attempt to attract him. Macedo, unable to resist, gives in to their advances. After their encounter, they leave the room. The following morning, the bishop arrives at the church. Tommaso and Maria take Bishop to the church. Macedo seizes the opportunity and sneaks into Alessandra's room, sharing a moment with her. During this, an elderly nun enters the room, catching Macedo off guard, causing him to exclaim, "Oh, shit." Alessandra, surprised by this, proceeds to help the nun with her attire. Macedo hides under the bed, as the deaf nun was unaware of their actions. Seeing a chance, Macedo tries to escape when Maria and Bishop suddenly enter the room. However, he quickly retreats under the bed once more. After everyone departs, Macedo escapes. Following this, Ginevra begins to prepare a potion, and instead of using it in her eyes, she decides to consume it, which disorients her. She then uses a cut on her hand to smear blood on her cheeks. Alessandra later enters Macedo's room and questions him about why he lied about being mute and deaf. In the midst of this, Ginevra shows up, causing Alessandra to hide in a corner. Due to belladonna's inebriation, Ginevra attempts to kiss Macedo. At that moment, they hear Fernanda's voice and hide in the corner, where she spots Alessandra, startling her. Fernanda enters the room, brandishes a knife, kidnaps Macedo, and takes him into the jungle. Alessandra and Ginevra follow. Upon reaching the jungle, they witness a shocking scene with witches dancing around a bonfire, and Macedo tied up. They realize that Fernanda and Marta are planning to sacrifice Macedo. When Marta is about to kill Macedo, Ginevra intervenes, trying to reason with the witches, but due to her drunken state, she accidentally strikes Marta with a stick, knocking her unconscious. Alessandra arrives, preventing Fernanda from harming Macedo. In the midst of this, Macedo reveals his true identity, stating that he is neither mute nor deaf. Ginevra, covered in bloodied rags, arrives at the church. She screams, alerting everyone, including Bishop. Bishop approaches her, and Ginevra tells him that Fernanda is a witch. Fernanda, Alessandra, and Macedo also arrive at the scene. Then Bishop calls Maria. But Father Tommaso comes out from her room, surprising everyone. The next morning, Bishop passes judgment, sending Father Tommaso to a different, all-male church, and they send Macedo back to Bruno, where Bruno locks Macedo in a dark cell. Meanwhile, the three sisters apologize for their wrongful behavior. Macedo is very worried in the dark cell. One night, Bruno visits him and reveals that he has kept his wife, Francesca, with wild pigs and dogs. He says he will keep Macedo alive as long as he is happy, and then he will kill him. Bruno describes various torture methods he will use in the coming days. Just then, they see a tortoise with a lit candle on its back. It turns out the three sisters sent it to distract the guards. As soon as the guards follow the tortoise, the three sisters arrive at Macedo, dress him in monk's robes, and take him away. Ginevra leaves a doll in Macedo's place, making it appear as if he is still there. Then they all escape and are forever free. In the jungle, Tommaso meets Maria. They are delighted to see each other. Just then, they hear the sound of the sisters and Macedo approaching. Hearing the sound, they hide. After the four of them leave, Tommaso and Maria are very happy and kiss each other. On that note, movie ends. So friends, that's all in today's video. If you like this video, please hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will meet you in the next video.